We are live. We are live. Tony, we are live. We are live. It is Sunday, January the 13th, 2019. And this is episode 8 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Episode 8 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Ladies and gentlemen, Sunday, January the 13th, 2019. And on this episode, Tony, Michael, and I are going to be talking Star Wars. Oh, we're entering into the very divisive world of Star Wars. Tony, how are you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm on my way to Kansas City.
He's on his way to Kansas City, ladies and gentlemen. That's right.
Patriots won today. I know the
Awesome.
the chat room is going to be quick to let me know that they won, because they've been so quick to let me know that they've lost over the last few weeks.
And is it not true that they won? That they were the underdogs going into this game?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For the last week and a half. Oh, Patriots are going to lose to the Chargers. They're going to get their heads handed to the Chargers. They're done. It's over. Yeah. Well, we taught them a little lesson today in Foxborough.
Right. And what was the score?
Final score 41-28, but it was a little bit convincing because at the end of the first half was 35-7. And I think the Patriots kind of like let off the gas a little bit in the second half of the game. They didn't exactly continue that full court press, which I was kind of hoping they would have, just to kind of send a message out there that we're not done, as everyone claimed that we would be done. So, you can't underestimate Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. And this is our 8th consecutive AFC championship game. One more game and we're off to the Super Bowl again. So
Right. Yeah, I'm not a football fan, but
I know, but
no. I'm just saying that I'm starting to think this New England Patriot team, man. I'm starting to think there's some conspiracy going on here. I mean, like, what the fuck? They're winning and they're in the Super Bowl all the fucking time. Let's see here. Yeah, so Tony and I are going to be talking Star Wars today, and this is an area that, I'm a big Star Wars fan. And but I did a video last week entitled "Are You a Hardcore Star Wars Fan?" And in that video, I made light. It was all fun, all in good fun. I made light the fact that 30 years ago, when Tony and I were growing up, or many of you were growing up, all we had was the original trilogy, some toys, and you were considered a hardcore Star Wars fan. This is all fun, folks. Okay, it's not an exact science, but Star Wars, the community has grown so much over the last 30 years that when this new trilogy was beginning its legs in 2015, I began to sort of really realize that in this day and age, I'm not really a hardcore Star Wars fan, because many hardcore Star Wars fans in this day and age, if you are a hardcore Star Wars fan, you have to be somebody that knows all about the expanded universe, all about the video games and the comics and the books and the toys and the what else is there? There's so much. And so I realize that I'm more of a big Star Wars fan.
I gotta kind of stop you
because I don't give a shit. I just want to say that the point I'm making is that, again, I'm saying this in good fun, but is that I don't, I really don't give a crap about any of the other. I don't care about the comics. I don't care about the expanded universe. I don't care about the games by and large, and I don't care about the cartoons or the books. For me, Star Wars is the cinematic universe, and that's it.
Well, I have to sort of disagree with that statement in that I don't think that there is a technical definition of what describe
course
a
not.
hardcore fan, you know, like I don't
course not.
have to be versed in the books in the old EU and in whatnot, or you know, you have to know what's going on in the comics or the games and shit. Like I never got into the games. I've read the books. I've been a big fan of the expanded universe and the books and whatnot. But this whole like, well, you know, dick measuring contest of like, well, you don't read the books, so that doesn't, you don't qualify as a hardcore fan. Like I never bought into that bullshit. If you like Star Wars and you love Star Wars and you're a fan of the films, then you're a fan of the film. Who am I to tell you you're not a hardcore fan?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. But the satirical nature of my video was making fun of all those people that basically go,
Wait a minute. You haven't read the books and you don't know anything about legends and how everything connects to the.
I'm like, no,
Oh, well, excuse me.
you know how Star Wars nerds and I'm a Star Wars nerd, but I'm telling you, there are like levels. There are levels of fandom. You know, there are like me, you know, and there's nothing wrong with the different levels. There's nothing wrong with it. God bless you people. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. But I'm telling you that, you know, sometimes, you know, like I'll go to a Comic-Con and, you know, if I go to, like, if I was to go, hypothetically, if I was to go to Star Wars Celebration, I would just go, I might go in my, you know, in my hoodie and pair of jeans and my hat, and I just go. But then there are some people like,
Now I'm dressing up. I got to put everything on. I got to have down to the finest.
and it's like, man, you look fucking fantastic, but that's not me. You know, I'm just not one of those people. You know, so I was making light and fun of the people that really get into it.
Yeah, you call it level of fandom. I call it level of psychoticness. Okay, you have the normal people like you and me, and then you have the people who take shit to DEFCON 5 in a matter of a blink of an eye. Like, wait, what are you talking about? This is exactly what happened in Legends.
Oh.
This is what I'm like. Holy shit! I've had conversations like that where I'm just like, chill, bro. You know, it's like the conversation we were talking about last week. The irony of my life sometimes is I can literally be sitting there having a conversation with someone who got close to peaking on K2, and then the following day I'm arguing over what's going to happen in Halloween 2018 sequel. Like, you know, of those conversations, or the contrast of that, it's like, here's this dude climbing K2. This dude, all he cares about is, you think Laurie Strode is going to be this in the next film? I don't fucking know. Like, you know,
I know.
But Star Wars fans are just as bad as that, you know? And it's like, where did we get so derailed from being just the fans who just enjoying the movies, having fun with it, to all of a sudden, like, you have to, it's almost like a qualification in order to be a fan. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's weird.
Excellent point. It's something I remember when The Force Awakens came out, and of course, I was doing a few videos on this channel about The Force Awakens, and then once that died down, I stopped, and I didn't really return with my face on my channel again for a couple more years. But I remember I posted a few videos in support of The Force Awakens, in talking about how The Force Awakens, because one of the biggest criticisms to The Force Awakens was, and I quote, "It's a pile of shit. It's nothing but a beat for beat remake of A New Hope." Well, it's actually not. In the literal sense, it's actually not a beat for beat.
Well, that doesn't matter. It's still
It's like, well, no, it does matter. Context matters. Okay. And not horror movies, not Halloween. Okay. I don't even know if Star Trek is like this, because I know that Trekkies can get really sort of insane too. But I'm just saying, I've heard that, Trekkies can get really insane too. But nowhere, not Halloween, not even Halloween, have I ever seen such a real sweaty nerd, maybe, really sort of just,
excuse me, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
it's like, holy Jesus. And because they're so emotionally attached, many of them, not all of them, if those of you who are watching, of course, I don't speak, it's not everybody, but many people lose sight of the objective sort of nature of how to have a conversation. Say, well, no, here's what you have to factor in. Here's this, here's that. No, 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 because they just want to, you know.
No, you're right. It's, you know, with Halloween,
unbelievable.
With Halloween fans, you're right. I totally agree with that, because Halloween fans, we can debate. You know, I can get into that debate about why I like Halloween 4 and so on. But, you know, at the end of the day, the debate ends up becoming a conversation. You know,
right.
It doesn't get into that rabid, you know, freaking venom coming out of your mouth, you know, veins popping out of your neck and head type of argument like it does with Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans take it to that freaking level. And I think personally, I think when it comes to episode 9, man, the freaking mountain that JJ's got to climb to even remotely get to a satisfaction with fans, it's almost an impossible tall order. Now, Rian Johnson didn't make it really easy for him, but I would not want to be in JJ's shoes right now. I really wouldn't, with that type of pressure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, what JJ has, when I left the theater after The Last Jedi over a year ago, I didn't give a fuck about episode 9. I didn't care. And people who've been following me for quite some time know why. And, you know, a year has gone by. I've licked my wounds. I've crawled sort of out of the depths of the cesspool that is The Last Jedi, in my opinion. And, in JJ, I trust. JJ Abrams is a very competent filmmaker,
sure.
And a very good filmmaker. He makes very solid, entertaining films. And so I really enjoyed The Force Awakens. There were things about it that I would have done differently, and there was a few retreads here or there, but it certainly wasn't a carbon. Like in the actual literal narrative sense, it actually is not a carbon copy of A New Hope. But that being said, so I trust that the reason why I trust that we are probably going to get, we could get something special with episode 9. And the reason why I put, you know, like, you know, I say in JJ, I trust is because of this. I have knowing what I know about the industry, knowing the people that I know, knowing the politics of how this shit works.
Yeah.
I've mentioned to you before, and you know this. I find it incredibly difficult to believe that JJ Abrams, I hear myself in feedback. I don't know why. I find it incredibly difficult to believe that JJ Abrams was not very disappointed with what Rian Johnson did. Now, he's saying all the right things. He has to.
I mean, he can't.
Exactly. He's a professional. He's saying all the right things. He even had story treatments for episode 8 that Rian Johnson basically just tossed out. I have very little doubt in my mind that when JJ Abrams was with his buddies or his wife, you've heard me say this before, that he, in the privacy of his own environment, has turned to his friends or his wife and said, I don't know what the fuck just happened. I don't know what the fuck just happened. I gave you a gold mine. I gave you so much potential with these new characters, different directions that you could go. Nobody's asking you to do a carbon copy of something else or whatever it is. The Force Awakens needed to be what it was to get everybody back on board, old fans, new fans, things like that. And I set you up with these arcs that literally went nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I think JJ Abrams, had episode 8 carried the mantle and been not only successful at the box office, because it was, but critically successful in terms of the fans, not divisive. Like, people just were like, wow, there was The Force Awakens, and then, wow, there's The Last Jedi. I don't think JJ Abrams would have returned to direct episode 9. I don't think he would have.
Right.
And I don't think Disney would have asked him. I think Disney asked him, because remember, they asked him before the movie was even released. But I think they asked him because they knew what was about to happen. And I think JJ Abrams came back because he's like, you damn fucking right, I'm going to come back. Now, there's certain things that JJ cannot touch. Okay, there's certain things that Rian Johnson has done that JJ has to go with.
Yeah.
You know, he has to go with it. But I do believe that there are other things that he will implement that Rian Johnson didn't, to try and course correct this. But how he's going to do it all in one movie, he has to create conflict and resolution all in one film, and I don't know. But anyways, I'm going on and on here, but I just want to say that I have confidence because I believe that he shares the same sentiments, essentially, as we all do. He's just not saying them publicly.
No, I agree. And if you want to just see the night and day difference, just take a look at the 2018 Halloween film. And it's not everybody's on board and saying they love the film. There's a large audience out there of people who did not like Halloween 2018. And one of them, I don't hate it. It's in my top 5 favorite films, depending on how I look at it from a certain point of view. No Obi-Wan pun there. But that is my point to that, is that we're not out there, taking shit to DEFCON 5 and telling David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, you ruined my childhood. How could you do no, because I understood what McBride and Green were doing in the 2018 film. I just felt like they were really relying too much on that safety net, a lot of times. And we've talked about that many, many times before. I'm not going to get into that. My point is that when you look at the fan base and you look at the Halloween fans, yes, even though there's a lot of them out there that didn't like the film, you're not really seeing this divisiveness within the Halloween community. We're still able to talk and still able to kind of share our views and whatnot. Whereas like what you just said right there, the Star Wars community, I have never seen it. It's like sports. It really is. You got one side and you got the other side. You've got the, people my age who feel like, Rian Johnson, and your age too, that Rian Johnson took a shit on our childhood, because he really did, on how he handled characters, as a director, given the opportunity to do something really special here. And look, I'm all for, artists and directors taking creativity and liberties to do shit and whatnot. Is it inconceivable for Leia to use the Force? No, because she is Luke's sister. It's like how we're going to introduce Leia using the Force for the first time in the trilogy. We're going to get a Mary Poppins moment. Like, come on, we didn't need to do something that extreme to give Leia that moment. Like, I'm cool with Leia having a moment, and doing something Force related. It was just poorly executed, and the difference, between what I was just talking about as far as the communities go. And I've never seen this with a movie fan base, like ever. I mean, you go onto anything, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or, YouTube videos, and it's just one comment after another, like, I hate it, I love it. I hate it, I love it. I mean, it's so equally divided.
Yeah. And, something that people have to understand is that it's not that there are not people out there. I can't speak for everybody. And I'm sure that there were people out there that had specific expectations in regards, and those expectations were created because of the theories that they were listening to and paying attention to, because of the rumors. They started to get their hopes up. They thought about The Force Awakens. They thought about the potential of Luke and what it's all good. And they started to create their own Episode 8 in their own mind. So now when they go to see it and it doesn't play out that way, they get really disappointed and they're angry and they're upset. And you can point to them and say, well, it's probably because you didn't have your 40-year-old fanboy expectations met. There is some validity to that. However, you can't black and white it. You can't paint it all with one brush, because there are certain people who are 40 years old and older and even a bit younger, where that's not what it was about. There were very certain specific story structure and character motivation and development and decisional sort of things that Rian Johnson created that made no sense from a 3-act story arc system perspective. There are fundamental flaws. I'm not saying that the second movie has to be Empire, but what Star Wars ultimately is a 3-act play. We know how this is going to end. We know it. We know how this is going to end, and we love it anyway because it's wonderful ice cream. You know how it tastes, but you eat it because it's great. There's nothing too unpredictable about the structure of Star Wars in the 3-act play. This is a quote from Rian Johnson in a video that I did some months back about Rian Johnson. This is his quote, okay? He said this about The Last Jedi. He says, and I quote, "For me, TLJ 100% distills what the spirit and heart of Star Wars has been in my life. But yes, it is personal. It's a certain point of view, and it has to be. Originals were personal for GL. That's why they're alive. Star Wars films will truly betray the heart and spirit of the originals if they lose that and become soulless, clean homages. But being alive means being messy, and it means every film won't line up exactly with what every fan is expecting or wants. I'm sorry TLJ didn't line up with your own certain point of view. Really, honestly, I am MTFBWY, which is May the Force be with you. And I read that, and Rian Johnson is right from a certain point of view, but he's also incredibly wrong at the same time.
Right.
Because what Rian Johnson is saying here is this was personal to me. It can't be personal to you, Rian. You're implementing the second act in a 3-act play. It was personal to Lucas because he began the trilogy. He wrote all 3 films. Well, he didn't. I mean, he helped to write all 3 films. He produced the films. He was heavily involved on set. Okay. He was heavily involved in the entire creation of Star Wars. Okay. This second act, you can't take what was set and say, well, that's nice. That's JJ's version. Now I'm just going to take what JJ did, throw it all out, and do what I'm going to do. You can't do that because JJ has set it up. So now you have to work with what he's given you and not contradict yourself by tossing many of the story arcs, including how did Maz get the lightsaber? Who is Snoke? What happened to, Luke just toss it over? Because, when you see Luke at the end of The Force Awakens, look at his face. He's feeling something. It's powerful. He's thinking something. It's painful. There's something there. That doesn't mean it's going to be what we expect it to be, but there's something there. He's feeling it. The John Williams score coming to that crescendo, that moment, it's like we need to find out what he's thinking. And what's he thinking? Meh, toss it over his shoulder. There's many things that Rian Johnson did. He was being avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde. He wanted to, and what that basically means is being risky just for the hell of it. Well, why don't we just do this? Because it doesn't seem organic. It doesn't seem natural to the natural decisions that these characters would make. Those of you in the chat room who are really into Netflix original shows, whether, I don't know what the hell, I don't watch a lot of them, but the superhero shit, whatever it is. Imagine if in the second season, all of a sudden the season goes like this and your characters that you know and love start making decisions that are not what this character would do. They start doing this or saying this or making certain decisions that make no sense to the foundation that was laid before it, right? They just suddenly start going like this. Like, well, why is this person? No, that person can't fly. Why are they flying? No, that person can't. You have to go with what was set before. That doesn't mean you don't make it your own, and it doesn't mean that you don't add your own elements to it. But Rian Johnson says, it was personal to me. I don't give a fuck. You don't go off and make your own Star Wars movie, because now this is what happens. Now you have this lame duck that sits in the middle of nowhere that doesn't feel really connected to anything because it's your own version of it. It's like, okay, you bring your own sensibilities and your own style to the picture and you maybe some creative ideas, but you have to go with what JJ set. You have to. By continuing with the narrative and the natural progression. Like it's I could go on and on, but I certainly I get what he's saying, but this is not the time in the middle act to start playing around with things.
Right.
Even JJ said, here's a treatment. JJ had an idea. He knew. He said, here's some ideas of what kind of I was thinking, ballpark, but you can take this and go with it. Make it your own. Write it, make it your own. Rian Johnson went, nah. There is JJ Abrams is literally nowhere in The Last Jedi. People say, well, he's the executive producer. I could go on about how that literally means nothing, but anyway.
There's a part of me that hopes just for the pure joy of watching it fail, I would love to see Kathleen Kennedy greenlight a project for Rian Johnson to do another Star Wars film just out of sheer joy, just to see the reaction because of the distrust the fans have with him as a director.
Yeah, ironically enough, I would agree with you in the sense, though, I think ironically, if he was given his own trilogy, he may actually create something quite interesting and quite fun. Let's not forget he directed the film Looper, which actually was pretty decent. It was an original film, great performances, science fiction. It was a really neat concept. if you give him his own trilogy and he starts from the ground up, he creates the foundation. Well, then we know what to expect. This is the world he's creating. But it's as if Rian Johnson suddenly, it's like this, it's like that phone tag thing, right? You used to play with your friends, and I say to you, Tony, one day there was this guy who was sitting on this park bench and this woman sat down next to him. Okay, now I hand it off to you. I've set the foundation. Well, naturally, you have to make it your own. It's your film now. But you would go, and the woman said to the man, that's what you would say. But what Rian Johnson did was, no, it wasn't a woman. It was a dog. And it wasn't a bench. It was a stool. And it wasn't a park. It was an arena. And it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? And now it's like you watch the end and you pick. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's not that there weren't redeeming qualities in TLJ, but overall, from story structure and character motivations, and it has nothing to do with, I actually like that Luke was a hermit. I actually like that. But there's other things about his arc that just was ridiculous.
Being a hermit, has kind of a little Obi-Wan feel to it. It's cool.
Yeah.
I had no problem. Yoda showing up, I thought that was a cool moment as well too. But there is just I watched Last Jedi, believe me or not. I watched it last night. I was going to watch because we were gonna do this show, and I was going to watch.
Can I ask you something?
What?
Before you say something. Can I ask you, I've only seen the movie twice. I saw it once in the theater. There's no fucking... Sorry?
This was my second time seeing it because it's on Netflix right now.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, that's good. Okay, so I saw the movie once in the theater. I didn't go back to see it again because I thought it was garbage. I have not purchased it on Blu-ray because I don't like the movie.
Yeah.
So now I watched it again for the second time about 4 or 5 months ago, about 6 months, 7 months after the release. I sat down, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this again. And it was on Netflix. Is it just me, or were you bored watching that movie? Because there's, maybe it's just me, but I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking, this is really not, I'm not having a good time watching this movie. I feel very bored, and I speak objectively on that.
No, I absolutely agree 100% on that. Yeah, I mean, the pacing is definitely, well, I mean, it looks like it was edited by a bunch of 5-year-olds. I mean, it really does. There's no clean cut storytelling. You've got too much going on. You don't know what's going on with whose arc. The whole Rose and Finn thing, and whatever, and they're off on Canto Bight, which by the way, Canto, whatever the
Canto Bight.
Bight, yeah, thank you. I mean, I've got the book here somewhere. I'm like looking around for the book. Because in the book, this is the thing that Disney's, screwing up on and what they want you to do. I have the book, and the book is really informative, and it really dives into more of this, world that we got kind of a small glimpse of in The Last Jedi. And I don't know if it's Disney's strategy to say, hey, you know what? We're going to feed you these little seeds in these, movies so that you have to go out and buy these books. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because, you have people like yourself, you don't really care about the books.
No, it's a bad thing. It's a terrible thing.
I like the books. One, I like to read, and I like reading, science fiction and space books and shit like that, and Star Wars. I'm very limited outside of real shit and reading about nebulas and supernovas and fucking universes and shit and real science. Aside from that, in the science fiction world, it's limited. Star Wars and there's some other fun stories out there that are creative, and whatnot, but Star Wars is kind of the bread and butter, it's the go-to. If you're a space nerd like myself, that's your go-to. So I don't mind, I don't mind, what they're doing as far as the novels that they've released. The novels have been great. And I love the books that they've been releasing, but here's a great example. Leia, there's a book out there, Leia book, and it's a really good book. What's her name? Claudia Gray, I think is the author of that book. She's done a few Star Wars novels that are absolutely great. But in the Leia book, there's a lot of shit that ties in with The Last Jedi, with key characters in that book that we're seeing for the first time, like fucking Holdo or whatever the hell her name is.
Holdo, yeah.
Yeah.
She's Holdo or something.
Yeah, she's such a huge a part to the Leia book, and when you read the book, now all of a sudden her character kind of makes sense in The Last Jedi. But is that the way you want to approach it for moviegoers? Because not everybody's going to be inclined to go out with books to fill these gaps.
No, it's not. And a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the times, the books are used to correct incompetency. And so what happens is that you will have things that don't make sense in the narrative of a film, and they legitimately don't make sense, either because they're plot holes or either because of character motivations or whatever it is. And then it's like, oh yeah, but go read the book because they'll fill it out. They'll talk more about this. It's like, no. That's no. That's not the way it should be done. Because now I have to go read the book just so that fucking scene makes sense to me. Why don't you have here's an idea. Why don't you have the scene make fucking sense? And then you can just expand on it in the book. You know, if you need to, but don't fill gaps in the book. Okay. Books are another way to make money. They're for the hardcore fans. Of course, you can get more in a book for obvious reasons. And I hear people all the time, oh, it makes so much sense now. Oh, I understand that now. And it's like, yeah, but I shouldn't have to read the book in order for something to make sense. Look, there's a lot of things about The Last Jedi. I mean, Leia should have been the one to go in the film. Luke should have survived and made it to episode 9. But at the same time, as we talked about briefly off air earlier this week, that, you know, really in reality, Luke should be the last Jedi. He should be the last Jedi as we know it. And apparently he's not. And it was just such a weak, ridiculous. Disney doesn't have the balls to actually pull the trigger. And I'm not saying that there isn't an evolution of what a Jedi is. But so what? So now Rey's going to be the last Jedi? And then so there's never really a last Jedi because there's always a new Jedi that's coming. So it makes the whole fucking title of the movie pointless. When I heard that the title of the movie was The Last Jedi, I thought, oh, yes. You know, because I thought that Luke was going to die the last Jedi, and then, you know, it would be understood that there would be a new incarnation, right? Taking it to the next level, because Luke, by his own admission, said that by and large, you know, the Jedi have failed a lot, and there needs to be more balance, and maybe an introduction of the gray Jedi would be really interesting. And I always thought that would be a wonderful angle to take.
Sure.
And maybe they will, I don't know. But for the sheer fact that, you know, in order to have somebody who is very proficient in not only the light side, but the dark side, you know, the Force is not neither good or bad. Okay. There is no bad Force or good Force. There's just the Force. It's what you do with the Force that makes you evil or bad. Right. And how you can, so, you know, to be able to actually understand the darkness and the power and where it comes from and how you can utilize the Force for bad, but you're actually a good person, can keep you one step ahead of your enemies, right? As the saying goes, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And one of the things that maybe, you know, the dark side was all about the dark and the light side was all about the light. Maybe they, to achieve true balance, you do need a gray Jedi. So I thought that was good. And it doesn't mean they still can't go that route. But when I heard Luke go, I'm not the last Jedi, there will be another I'm like, for fuck's sake, well, ooh. No, it goes totally against what Yoda said too. Gone when am I, the last of the Jedi you will be. And I mean, it's totally like, this is poetry here, folks. Luke should be the last Jedi as we know it. There's a lot of other things. There's a lot of other structural things in that movie that just don't make sense at all.
Well, first of all, when I hear the word last, I think of final, I think of conclusion. You know, I don't think of it as a middle part to a 3-part chapter. I think of we are bookending it, we are concluding it. Just using the word last, okay? Just starting there. Secondly, I don't mind the whole ending Luke becoming one with the Force. That would have been perfect to end this trilogy. I'm not saying that I need my hero to be there, you know, to carry off riding off in the sunset like he's John Wayne, you know, and whatnot, and he's the hero. I'm not asking for that. But if you're going to use the word last, which is basically it's the form of a conclusion of something, you don't use the word in the middle part of a 3-part act. You know what I mean? Like it makes no sense how, you know, because you're not concluding. There's still more story to be told.
I agree with you, and it's very obvious to me now that what the title represents is simply who Luke is.
Sure.
It's basically the title of the movie could have been easily called Star Wars Episode 8: Luke Skywalker. I mean, that's essentially what it could have been called, because I thought, and there should have been more weight to the title, The Last Jedi, and what it represents overall in the overall arc of the Star Wars universe. Because like I said, when you go back to what Yoda said and you realize, like, at this present time, yes, he is the last Jedi. And therefore, if you keep him as the last Jedi, and Rey the beginning of something new, because she learns from Luke, and she learns that, you know, again, the old ways is not the way it's supposed to be. And when Luke said it's time for the Jedi to end, I was one of the only people, I can't say I was the only one, but I was one of the only people when I watched that trailer and he said at the end of the movie, or at the end of the trailer, I was one of the only people that went, yes, oh yes, they got balls, this is going to be interesting. No. That was just, it was just Luke. You know, he was kind of having a down day. You know, he was feeling kind of grumpy, you know, but he'll come back, you know. But everybody who watched that trailer, the trailer reactions, people were going, no, Luke, no. And I was like, yes, have some fucking balls. You got to move on. Because what are you going to do? Well, now, Rey's the last Jedi, and then somebody else will be the last Jedi. There'll never be a last Jedi. So why? So now it just is obvious to me. Oh, so they're just talking about Luke. So they're not talking about something in a bigger picture Star Wars world sense. They're just basically saying this movie's about Luke, who at this current moment is the last Jedi. So we'll call the movie The Last Jedi. Oh, that's dumb. You know, I wanted something of more substance of what it means. And when he dies, we go, wow, the last Jedi has died. Wow. Right now, it's like, oh, well, no biggie. We got another one over here.
Pretty much.
you know.
Yeah, and you know, don't get me wrong. I'm totally on board. Look, I'm not one of these people who gets all bent out of shape, like, oh, we don't need another female, you know, political correct Hollywood. Like, I'm totally cool with Rey being a strong female Jedi character and taking up the mantle and whatnot. You know, we've had, I've had this discussion many times. You know, the badass female, you know, story arc goes back to the days of the 1930s, you know, Dracula and Frankenstein movies. You know, the female heroine is not something new. We didn't just create it. This has been around forever. It's been the key part to storytelling. And even goes back to plays. If you go into like Shakespearean plays and other plays out there, you know, the female heroine has always been, you know, the key role to the story. So this whole thing where you got these people like, we just got another female lead and they're being politically like, no, this is not something new. Unless you're movies, you know. Right. So I'm totally cool with Rey, you know, being, you know, whatever. She's gonna be a Jedi, whatever. You know, I didn't really care about the whole backstory. You know, I know a lot of YouTube channels, you know, invested a shit ton of time and energy trying to dissect from The Force Awakens, you know, who her parents were, and you know, the fact that they made it kind of a side note, and Kylo tells her there that, you know, you're nothing. You know, like, right. Kind of like that, you know, in a way. I do like that she's not coming from a lineage that is predictable, like she's Obi-Wan's offspring, or, you know, she's Palpatine's offspring or whatever. You know, I kind of like the fact that she came, you know, you came from nothing. You know,
well, yeah, and I like it too. I that doesn't really bother me, really. I will say, look, it's 2019, and if The Force Awakens had come out 35 years ago, nobody would be complaining that, how did she get so strong so quickly? Nobody be saying that. They're saying it now because the expectations of what we expect from our heroes and our movies is much higher. The bar is much higher of what we expect. Right. Okay. We have higher standards now, even when it's in a fantasy film for children. Now, when I say that Star Wars is for children, people will say, it's not for children. I'm 45. It's like, well, I know that. But at the end of the day, I'm talking about the sensibilities of the movie. It's about the hero's journey, which is a very adult sort of theme that, you know, you take throughout your life. But I'm talking about the adventure of it, the sensibilities of it, you know, the special effects, the characters, the humor, the, you know, that sense of a lot of, when I say children, I don't mean like 2 or 3, okay? But it's when I say, but you say kids movie, and it's like, I'm not saying it's a kids movie like The Sandlot. I'm just saying that it's got that sensibility about it, okay? It's fantasy adventure, you know, in that realm. And you know, it's going to take liberties. It's not Star Trek. It's not science fiction, okay? And, you know, I mean, if we want to get really serious here, how are ships exploding in space? And let's be let's be honest, okay? If you were really going at the speed of light across the galaxy, by the time Han Solo got back to Leia, they'd be dead. Okay, because of the theory of relativity. So, I mean, you know, you know, let's be honest here, okay? But that being said, people expect more now. So they look at Rey and they go, well, that doesn't make any sense. How'd she get so fast? She's a Mary Sue. And is she a Mary Sue? To some degree, yes, she is. But at the same time, I'm like, well, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, I mean, if you want to, like,
it's not that big a deal, man.
It's not really. I mean,
you know,
it is. I will say this. I don't think JJ Abrams had the idea that her parents were nobodies. I don't think JJ Abrams necessarily had that her parents were Skywalkers, but I do believe that JJ may have had something really interesting there, which could have explained.
Interesting. I'm okay with, just as long as it's like we're not connecting it still to the Skywalkers or connecting.
Right. Well, I think JJ had something there that would have made sense.
Sure.
Rian Johnson took that and threw it out. Now, that can still be retconned. I mean, because you could pass it off, not saying JJ's going to do it, but you could pass it off that Kylo Ren was lying to Rey, which would make sense.
Easily, absolutely.
Very easily, because he wants to get inside her head.
Yep.
And that makes sense. So, but there's, the whole, you know, Rey is, it's just The Last Jedi was I could go on. I mean, there's just so many things about it that just the decisions, not having, well, you've heard me say this, not having Rey go with Kylo Ren at the end of the movie was a huge mistake. It made no sense.
Right.
And I don't mean turn to the dark side. I don't mean that, but make the decision to go with him, because the whole movie, she doesn't know where her place is. Luke turned out to be a bust in her eyes, right? She was hoping that Luke was going to be the one to show her place in all of this. He turned out to be a bust. The only person, her parents, according to, at this moment, turned out to be nothing. They didn't give a fuck about her. They sold her for cash. The only person that has taken an interest in her is Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that she has that doubt, that she thinks, oh my God, maybe my place in all of this is with him.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends on that note. I don't mean at that scene, but on that note where you're like, oh shit, we know how this is going to end. Okay. We know this, but this is the 3-act play. When you go to watch Hamlet, you know how it's going to end. When you go to what, you know how these things end, but there's always a beginning act, a middle act, and a third act. And the second act is always the darkest for our protagonists. It always ends on that bum, 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 and then the third act is your redemption, so to speak. And, so I was always very confused how The Last Jedi ended very much on a very high note, very positively with Broom Boy. And that was just patronizing and insulting. All that was just to show that you have the Force too, and anybody can have it. Get it out of here. Get that fucking scene out of there. We don't need it. It was borderline virtue signaling. I mean, it was almost like, and you have it too, and anybody can have the Force. And yes, tell us that through the narrative. Don't tell us that by showing this Broom Boy which bears no real impact on the rest. You just throw that at, that should not have been the end of the movie. Should not have been the end of the movie. The end of The Last Jedi should have ended on despair and uncertainty. And then people have said to me, well, it did. I mean, how is the Resistance going to build? The questions that are left in The Last Jedi are not strong enough questions to ponder for 2 years. They're not strong enough. Compare it to Empire. Fuck, what's going to happen to Han? Fuck, we just found out that the baddest evil guy in the galaxy is Luke's dad. Fuck.
Jeez, not even compared to Empire, compared to Attack of the Clones.
Sure.
I'm saying that Attack of the Clones is 100 times better than Last Jedi.
it's the same sort of, it's those nuances of, there are certain ways you structure a second act. And that doesn't mean that you have to play within you can play in your own sandbox. But The Last Jedi didn't feel like a second act to me. It felt like the third act in a movie. It felt like it was done, it ended very positively and very optimistically. And it should not have ended that way. That's how the third act is supposed to end. I could go on and on. I just feel like I don't want to take up all the time here, but
my only issue with The Force Awakens, because I know we've been talking about The Last Jedi here, and I haven't had a chance to tell you about what I thought about The Force. I only had one issue. I really wish that JJ brought the big three together for one scene, one moment. That's the only thing I felt that it was lacking. And I know Mark Hamill has definitely voiced his opinion as well too. And I agree with him. I think, and of course, none of us could have, foreseen, with Carrie Fisher and all that happening. And I do feel like he missed a huge opportunity to reunite them, even if it was just for a moment. Because I feel like there were moments that were so underplayed. When Han dies, spoiler, if you haven't seen it, but when he dies, I thought that moment between Leia and Chewie was it was almost kind of like,
oh, it was awful. It was
awful. It was like, wait a second here. No, this is like one of the key, elements to the core 3 or core 4, if you want to count Chewie as well too, from the OG trilogy. And it's like, you're not really giving it justice here, No. And even with Luke, even though I know Luke has his moment in Last Jedi, it just felt like it was very underplayed.
Yeah, I agree with. Oh no, well, Luke. We can talk about. Let me just talk about that in a second. But I agree with what you're saying. I think, however, because the main plot of The Force Awakens was Luke was missing for the entire movie, and seeing him at the very end would have made it very difficult to bring the three together. However, I will say this: maybe there could have been some sort of, because JJ used flashbacks in The Force Awakens, or known as forcebacks, as it's become known. So if he wanted to put the three together, I love how the film ends, by the way. And I love the fact that the vast majority of the film is all about in search of Luke. I like that. But maybe at the beginning of the movie, he could have showed a scene, a battle scene or something, or, that involved Han, Luke, and Leia. And this was before Luke went into exile, if you know what I mean. So there was just this moment that we were able to see them together on screen again sometime, later. That's how because I wouldn't want to have him come back prematurely too early, because then that would ruin sort of the ending of seeing him on the cliff. But now it doesn't really fucking matter, because The Last Jedi, like when that movie ends, The Force Awakens, and he turns around and he lives, you can see the pain. Now, who knows what he was thinking? That was supposed to be left up to Rian Johnson. But JJ probably in his mind was saying, you feel the death of Han. You can feel that shit has gone down. You can feel you're struggling, internally, that people and love, your sister, your best friend has just been murdered by his son, the son that you were training, and blah, 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 blah. That's what's on his face. You can feel it. You can see it right there, right? So that's a great ending to that. So I definitely would have wanted to have kept that, but I agree with you. I think it definitely was a missed opportunity, and something that would have been nice to see. One of the things in The Force Awakens too, in regards to Han's death, there were a lot of people that did not like that Han Solo died. And I'm here to tell you, Han Solo had to die. Not because Harrison Ford wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi, and George Lucas totally, went against it, but because it gave the film some bottom. It gave the film some weight. And that whole scene between Kylo and Harrison Ford is really symbolic when you know what to look for. This is not just about Kylo killing his dad in a cool location. Look at the sun. That's when Star Killer Base is sucking the light from the sun. And the moment that Kylo kills his father is when the white light from the sun goes out, and all that is left is the red illumination from his red lightsaber. So the white light is gone and the red light is there. Another thing as well is that I interpret it as, it's not that Kylo Ren doesn't struggle with the light side of the Force. He does. But when Kylo says to his father, I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it. Or I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Can you help me? Han Solo thinks, he says, I know what I have to do, which means I have to come with you and come back to the light, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Can you help me? That's what Han Solo thinks. That's not what that's not what he means. He means, I know I have to kill you in order to gain the full respect of my master. I know I have to kill you to get one step closer to being like my grandfather, Darth Vader. But I don't know if I have this. I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Can you help me? And the "can you help me" part is rhetorical. You know what I mean? It's that, can you help me by standing here? Can you help me by, oh my God. And when you see it play out like that, it's like, wow, it's not just about a guy killing his dad. It's very meaningful, and it gave that film bottom. There's a lot of things like that in The Force Awakens that when you know what to look for, it helps enrich the experience.
Sure. So what do you think about the theory of Vader? Because now, well, I'm sure you're aware of this, that when Anakin turns back from Vader, he splits. His ghost splits. That there's two sides. There's the light side, there's Anakin, and then there's still Vader, the dark side that's still lingering, that's out there.
Where's this come from? Where's this?
It's in novels. It's in comics.
Oh, it's okay.
All part of the novelizations and whatnot. Which is, I don't know how much of that is canon and how much of it not is canon. I do know that JJ toyed with the idea of having a Force ghost with Anakin in this, where he split. It's evenly, half Vader, half
right.
Anakin. So that is so. My guess is that it's still in canon. If JJ was considering it for the movie. But there's some people have speculated or guessed or have done videos on the idea of Vader's Force ghost showing up to Kylo Ren and almost basically belittling him to the point where he kills him. That he's not strong enough to be a Sith. What do you think about that? The possibility of that happening in Episode 9.
I know that the word on the street is that JJ Abrams, because this is going to be the last Star Wars movie, it's supposed to be, as we know it, the last episodic Star Wars movie for the immediate future. That doesn't mean they'll never make an episode 10. I'm sure they will at some point. But as I mentioned to you the other day, I think Disney wants to focus on their streaming and The Mandalorian and, all this kind of jazz. And it's not that they won't make another one, an episode 10. But I think the idea is, for now, the immediate future, this is it. And this is being marketed and touted as the final film in the Skywalker saga. So I know that word on the street is that JJ Abrams wants to tie in all 9 films in some sort of way. So there's definitely going to be a lot of fan service and a lot of cool things in that regard, which is great. Okay, cool. As long as it
back, I know that.
Sorry?
Like Billy D. Williams, I know he's coming back as Lando.
Yeah, exactly. But that being said, I would much prefer. Yeah, I'm sure Anakin will be mentioned. I actually would much prefer if we did not see the Force ghost of Anakin
or Vader.
And that it was left up.
Though, to see Vader as a Force ghost, that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it would be cool to see, but I don't want it to be a distraction. And I want that focus to be still so much on Kylo Ren. Like when he had his helmet, okay? And maybe it's been said in the books of how he got the helmet. I don't fucking know. But when we saw that he had his helmet, that was cool. That he had a relic, and that he had something there of his grandfather's. Sure. To be able to, I don't know. I guess it's too bad that Snoke was killed so early, because I think it would have been very cool if Snoke had turned out maybe to be Darth Plagueis, maybe to have been somebody even more powerful than the Emperor, more powerful than Vader. And we find out in Episode 9 who he is, and there's this struggle and this battle, and it just. Vader's cool, and I understand that he's going to tie it in.
The only reason why I make that suggestion is because I have a feeling we're gearing up for the obvious, that she's going to defeat Kylo. Right. she meaning Rey. That it's the obvious setup, it's the obvious ending. You know, Rey turns to the light side, she defeats, you know,
yeah.
That's it, the end of the story.
Yeah.
Vader showing up and almost having this moment, Vader showing up as a Force ghost and having this moment of like, yeah, you're not worthy, dude. You're a little bitch, and takes out Kylo. There's a lot you could do with that type of moment, and even Rey witnessing it, you know, and being torn, watching, you know, Kylo Ren being killed by Vader's Force ghost, you know, something along those lines. I don't think that's too far-fetched. It's just it's not a predictable thing. It's not something that you're anticipating to see. Whereas like if Rey defeats Kylo, I'm kind of already prepared in my mind that that's what I'm going to see later this year.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with that. But there's something about Darth Vader coming in and killing Kylo. It's just kind of like there's something there. It's like really, like Vader coming in and his ghost doing that. Like Vader's gone, man, you know, and it's just kind of like he's gone. It's done. You want to have his Force ghost there. Maybe, you know, Kylo Ren dreams about him or sees him as an apparition, or maybe there's a moment where he's talking to him or talking to the dark side of the Force and there's this manifestation of Vader or something. Like that's all cool shit. But to come in and actually kill Kylo, I was an advocate for Rey turning bad. I actually hoped in The Last Jedi that Rey, well, as you know, would go with Kylo, but actually go full Force, and it would be up to Poe and Finn to try and redeem her, but they don't end up redeeming her. And the thing that's been inside her is actually something very evil, which is why Luke was afraid of it. When Luke discovered there's something very powerful in Rey, it took him
like Kylo and her kind of flipping.
No, because I don't want to redeem Kylo. Kylo is irredeemable or unredeemable to me. But there's but maybe there's something within Finn that there's something there that he hasn't tapped into yet, or there's something that maybe you can play around with that it comes in. I know, I understand. I'm not saying that that's 100% what you need to do, but it would have just been, it's pushing the envelope. It's doing things that we don't expect. We expect that Rey's going to be our Luke for this trilogy. We know why. We're making a girl the good person for this, trilogy. I get it. Okay. But why not just, because we can't market, because all the little girls look up to Rey and we can't market, we want to market all the toys and the positivity and all that kind of stuff. And I understand that.
Their toy sale is at their lowest ever.
For The Last Jedi, it is. Yeah. So when I think about it, I just think, I just tossing ideas at like, what if what Luke, sensed in Rey was, oh my God, this is very powerful. And as you know, there's not, yes, there is a light side and a dark side to the Force, but it's how you use it. It's if you go dark, right? You create the dark side of the Force because you're using it for dark things, and you yourself are dark, but the Force is neutral. The Force is there to be used to tap into, and you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. So to have Rey use it for bad, to be persuaded and to go there, she's so powerful, would just be so interesting. And then we see her in episode 9 in black, and shit, and she's got a red lightsaber, or she's, but she's struggling. I'm not really sure. And then, and then it's all about saving her. No, we believe she's the future. We believe she's the future. When in reality, it's like, maybe she's not. Maybe you're the future, Finn. Maybe you're the one. Maybe there's something in you that we sort of saw building in the first episode that we suspected, right? We all suspected that Finn might be, there might be something there. Even though he didn't show Force powers, we suspected that maybe there was something there, and they took us on this turn, right? They it's like the magician. They're making you think about all this when they're actually, the important stuff's going on over here. It's that sleight of hand. Oh, fuck. Oh shit, it wasn't Rey. Oh fuck, like shit like that. That's taking risks within the Star Wars universe. That's doing shit. I'm not saying that fans are going to love it. I'm not saying that it's going to, all fans are going to enjoy it, but that's something I could get behind because, oh shit, or maybe she does go dark and episode 9 ends where it's like, oh fuck, and you go into episode 10 where it's like, oh shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's gonna happen here? You know, you keep that train rolling, and maybe Kylo Ren is killed, but Rey becomes the baddie of the galaxy. Like, shit.
What
right?
do you
Like, holy fuck.
What do you think about the possibility of Snoke actually not being dead, that he's still alive? And this is just part of his plan, that he is still Plagueis, that he didn't die. I mean, he's Plagueis, and he has the ability to recreate life, you know.
I don't think JJ's going to do it.
You know?
Because it's one of the major plot not device, but it's
part of me that wishes JJ does, just to kind of shove it back to Rian Johnson.
Yeah, but I think
you're not screwing up my shit.
Well, that's a different thing. I think JJ would love to do that. I personally think JJ is pissed that Rian Johnson not only killed Snoke, but killed him in a really weak sort of way. Kylo Ren basically outwitted Snoke. What are you kidding me? Absolutely. I don't think JJ's going to. Wanting to and going to are two different things. I don't think he's going to, because it's one of the fundamental arcs of that movie. And it's almost like, oh, you know, I can't, I'd love to, but I can't now. Like, I can't, because I don't want to ruin what that was supposed to be. You know, like, I get what you were doing, and so I don't want to, you know, the parents thing isn't strong enough, right? It's not a strong enough. Your parents are nobody. You know, they're nobody. JJ could retcon that and still keep the consistency there. Still keep things, you know, kind of to bring back Snoke, and kind of like, oh shit. Like, if we still had 2 more movies, like if he was going to, or cut episode 9 into 2 films or something, then I might, oh, maybe he'll bring back Snoke, because there's more time to create, to create resistance, and to create what's the word for it? To create conflict, you know. But right now, JJ, because of how episode 9 ended, JJ has to create build up, conflict, and resolution all in one movie now, because it almost seems like episode 9 is going to like stand on its own. Like it kind of feels like that. So
episode 9 is actually going to be 2 and 3, or 2 movies combined together to be like the second and third act of his trilogy.
Right. Kind of like what Avengers Infinity War and Endgame is.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what Disney's going to do, but in some ways, and I understand that it would break the trilogy up, and it would break the consistency and the tradition. I get it. But if you could really tell an amazing ending, even maybe take more liberties, Rey turns dark, full on dark. Fuck. You know what I mean? Kylo's killed. Fuck. You know, like now where are we going? Shit's going. And you get JJ to do both movies. You get him to complete both films. If hypothetically, if we walk out of 9 and 10 and we actually go, wow, now nobody is going to give a fuck that they broke tradition. Nobody's going to care that now you have 3, 3, and 4. Nobody will care, because of how epic winning forgives everything. It's a great sports analogy. If you win, nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck. If your team is winning, nobody cares.
Unless you're the New England Patriots, then everybody gives a fuck.
But if you're winning,
if you're winning, we don't care. But
that's my point. That's my point. If you're fans of the New England Patriots, or if you're fans of the Buffalo Sabres or the Toronto Maple Leafs or whoever, if you're fans and your team is winning, you don't give a fuck who's coaching. You don't give a fuck who your players are. You're winning. So if they did divide that movie into 2 and deliver, because JJ needed more time to expand that, you know, that exposition and that conflict and really build something, nobody's going to give a fuck if it's great. But of course, I don't think they're doing that. I think this will be one movie. Maybe it'll be the longest out of them all. Maybe it'll be 2.5, close to 3 hours. I don't know. But I don't think they're doing that.
I'm okay with, because as a fan going into the film, JJ's got a lot to do to clean up, and I expect that. You know, even though I didn't list it as one of my most anticipated films this year, of course I'm going to go see it. It's Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
Right.
But like I said at the beginning of the stream, the shoes that I would not want to be in is JJ's. Even though JJ is the man, he has proven it time and time again. His track record is awesome, and JJ we trust, right? That's what everybody's saying out there. There's a not only does JJ have to clean up the bullshit that Rian Johnson did, then he's still got to deal with the issue with Carrie Fisher and Leia. I mean, it's like I said, I just would not want to be in his shoes, because how do you address that? Do you have her? Do you have Leia?
Oh, well, no, it's already. Yeah, no, sorry to interrupt, but it's already out there in the ether. What they're using is they're using footage that was shot for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And they're going to implement that as seamlessly as they possibly can into Episode 9, into the narrative. So, it'll probably be something like Poe is flying a ship, and he's like, Your Highness, blah, 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 blah. And then it cuts to, and you see Leia talking to Poe. Or you see Leia go into a room and she's talking to General so-and-so through a hologram about the First Order and blah, blah, blah. And of course, that was all shot for The Force Awakens, but it ended up on the cutting room floor. But they're able to actually use it because it works within context of what they're doing now. That's how they're going to do it.
Now, how do you think they're going to end her off? Are they going to kill her?
No.
She's just going to ride off in the sunset and that's it?
I think
out there.
Yes, I don't think they will kill her, which is unfortunate. I think, and I said this before, I think Leia should have died in The Last Jedi, and I think she should have died the way Holdo died. I think she should have died she should have sacrificed herself
to save everyone. Yep.
To save everybody, and it would have been like and you play it out the same way. You play it out the same way. You drop the sound, you play boom right through the starship, everything the same way. It's like, fuck, she goes out literally in a blaze of glory. And I think that's what should have been done. And then it's that death that Luke now feels and is like, oh my God, Han is dead. Leia had to make that choice. She should not have had to make that choice. Not because of Luke. I mean, it's not like you can blame Luke for that, although I guess you could in some roundabout way. Sure. But he feels that, and it's like, oh my God.
Right.
And that
now my sister's gone.
Right. It's like
time for me to step up and
because I'm telling you right now, everybody loves the reunion between Luke and Leia in The Last Jedi. Well, okay, but it's really weak. I mean, all the shit is going down. The Battle of Crate is happening, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, very anticlimactic, like it's nothing, Luke just walks into the room. You see his silhouette. He walks into the room. I was one of the only people that knew something was up because it looked like he had just done, had a haircut and put some Just for Men in his beard. So I knew that. I was like, wait a minute, he doesn't look, there's something, what's going on here, right? He sits down, he has a moment with Leia, but it's so like nobody's talking to him.
They're talking about her hair,
Yeah, but it's so like, it's cool to see them on screen.
Sure.
Yes, to see them on screen together in the same frame is awesome. But what surrounded it was weak as fuck. Weak as fuck. You know what would have been epic is if Luke, because Rey sees Luke's X-Wing in the water when she goes to get the lightsaber that he half-assedly tossed over his shoulder. So that is signaling to the viewers, us, that his X-Wing, that's how Luke got to the planet, and his X-Wing is submerged in the water. Well, how awesome would it have been because there was a moment during the Battle of Crate where one of the Resistance people says, there's another ship coming in or something, and we don't know who it is, and nobody knows who it is. I don't know if it was the Falcon or what it was, but there's something like that said, well, why not have it Luke in his fucking X-Wing? And he shows up, and he lands. So you see this tiny little fucking X-Wing land in front of Kylo Ren's walkers. And there's this, far away shot. You see all these massive walkers, and you see this little X-Wing there. And the thing opens up like this, and Luke stands up, and he's standing in his X-Wing, and his cape, is flapping in the wind. And everybody who's huddled in that cave, Leia and Poe and Finn and the Resistance, they're all looking out, and they're like, oh my God,
yeah,
it's Luke. He's come. And everybody's talking. And there's this shot panning across everybody's face. All the Resistance people who've never even met Luke. They know he's a fucking legend. He is arguably the most powerful Jedi that has ever lived. Ever lived. More powerful than Vader. More powerful at this point in his life. More powerful than Anakin. More powerful than Yoda. More powerful than Obi-Wan. And there's this shot panning all the faces, you know, in the rocks. You know, you see their eyes and they're looking out, and there he is. And Kylo Ren is looking down at Luke, you know, on his ship. The only difference is Rey is there beside Kylo Ren. And you know how all that shit that I talked about before. Like, that would have been epic. That's an amazing entrance. And it's not to say that the moment when the cave wall opens and Luke walks out there to face Kylo Ren, that wasn't epic, but nothing fucking happened. Nothing happened. He didn't crumple. I wanted to see him crumple those walkers.
No, man,
you know?
I absolutely agree.
It was weak. And then, you know, it was just, yeah, sorry. It was great to see them on screen, but I found the reunion itself very lackluster.
Oh, it was totally. I mean, like I said, you know, I mean, the best dialogue, you mean to tell me that you guys as writers, the writers now I'm talking to who wrote the script to this movie, is, you know, a conversation between Luke and Leia about her fucking hair? Like, this is the best dialogue that you can come up with.
Imagine this. People in the chat room, imagine this. Imagine what I just said, okay? There he is. He's in the X-Wing, you know, he stands up. The wind's going... His cape is flapping in the wind. Kylo Ren and Rey are in the ship. Rey is struggling because she sees Luke, and she's struggling because she knows that maybe she hasn't made the right decision. Kylo Ren is yelling at Rey. The fucking, he's pointing at Luke. You know, you see. And then Leia, and everyone's wondering where Leia went if she didn't die. I still think she should have died in the ways that she did, but I'm just saying, imagine if she didn't die, and, you know, we couldn't have her die in that thing. Okay, so let's say she didn't die, and she's there, and she goes out there to meet Luke, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? But you know where she is, and then they see her, and they see her walking out to meet Luke, and it's like, what the fuck is Leia doing? And you don't hear anything but the wind. And you just hear the footsteps on the sand on Crate, right? You know, and she walks up, and Luke looks down at her because he's up in the X-Wing, you know, on his feet, and he looks down at her, you know, and then Leia's there, and she's looking up, and they have this moment, and they talk or whatever, you know, just something like that. There's this epic moment where they talk. Like, that would have been really interesting. It would have been really interesting. And then maybe Leia sort of helps Luke in some sort of way. Do you know what I mean? And now we get to see Leia use the Force. Like, fuck.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, one thing's for sure, depending on how many people end up catching up to this video and watching that moment there where you compared Luke and Anakin, that's always a highly debated topic. Who was stronger in the Force? Yes. I've always felt, based on because of what I know with the books, Anakin, you know, was definitely more Force. He was stronger. He was a better, you know, he was a better swordsman with the lightsaber.
Yes.
You know, unfortunately, he didn't reach his full potential. But the only reason, as a Jedi, but the only reason why I do think Anakin was stronger is because Anakin knew both sides. He was, you know, he knew the dark side and he knew the light side, and he came back to the light side. And they dive deep into that, you know, it's kind of like what Palpatine says, you know, is it Revenge of the Sith? He says the line, for one to know all, you must know both sides.
Something like that.
Something like that. He says. So that's where, you know, that debate comes in. Who was the stronger Jedi? Was Luke stronger, or was Anakin?
Absolutely, that's right.
Ultimately, because Luke lived longer, you know, Luke obviously was able to do more things with the Force than Anakin could ever do. So that's where I agree with you as far as like overall being able to use the Force in certain ways that Anakin couldn't do.
Yeah,
I agree. Luke was stronger, but
yeah, well, it's an argument to be made, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see that play out.
No,
you know, and
I wish they would go into parts of that, you know, like wherever Disney's going to do now with Disney TV and whatnot, that maybe they might give a series and like old, you know, like Anakin stories, you know, in between like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, because there's a lot of Anakin stories out there that you can tell where the shit that Anakin's doing as a Jedi, Luke never fucking did it. We never saw Luke do half of that shit.
Right.
You got a little bit in some of the cartoons, like not Rebels. Fuck, someone in the chat room help me out with it. There's one cartoon series that Anakin's in where you see him, and I mean, I know it's cartoon, it's animation, it's not Hayden Christensen doing Anakin, and I get it, but you are seeing where Anakin ultimately was evolving to as a Jedi. And I think if you were to put the two of them in their youth and in their prime, I think hands down Anakin would have walked all over his son. And then he did.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, Clone Wars. Thank you, Miles. Appreciate it. Yeah, Clone Wars was the animated series where they did tap into, and I would like to see maybe Disney do some of that shit with live action and tap into Anakin's youth, and in between Attack of the Clone and Revenge of the Sith and all that shit was going on. It doesn't have to be Hayden. I'm not saying that you have to bring Hayden back to play Anakin, but I would love to see them tackle that as a project on the streaming service. That would be cool.
Yeah, no, I agree that I haven't watched really any of the cartoons, but I've heard some good things about certain parts of the cartoons. So that, I mean, what you're saying there sounds cool.
It's like there's some good, there's a lot of bad.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I don't know, man. I mean, it's episode 9. I just hope. I don't want it to be predictable. I want there to be things that happen in episode 9 that are tragic and they stay tragic. So if Poe dies, Poe dies. If Finn dies, Finn dies.
Yep.
If you're not going to turn Rey bad, if she dies. If he dies,
what do you do though? I mean, that's the question. Like, what? I mean, like, I feel like we're going to get the textbook safety net. Pretty much everything we're talking about tonight is going to happen. We're going to see, okay, moments. Oh, there's Billy D. Lando. Yay. There's Yoda. Maybe we might get a Force Ghost with Hayden Christensen as Anakin, like really, like I call Halloween 2018 the greatest hits. This last Star Wars could be Star Wars the greatest hits. And you're going to see everybody except for Han.
That's a really good point. A really good point. Yeah. No.
Saturate us with that and not really give us a narrative, not really give us a story that, will kind of leave Star Wars fans like, okay, this was fun. We got to see all of our old people, but like, yeah.
No, I agree. And it's partially because of the debacle of The Last Jedi in the second act. The second act is the film that bridges the beginning and the end. So, the second act is what is the catalyst for what to expect in the third act. Well, now, like I said, JJ has to create conflict and resolution all in one movie because there is no conflict. Rey is fine and with the Resistance. Poe and Finn are fine and with the Resistance. And Kylo Ren is off on his own. Well, that's how it was at the beginning of the fucking movie. The only difference now is that Luke's dead, and I understand that the Resistance is dwindled down to about, 30 people or something like that. But so what? So what? There's no conflict within the characters, in terms, like at the end of Empire, Han is away, frozen in carbonite with Jabba. Luke's found out that the baddest man in the universe is his dad, and then sorry?
And he's missing a hand.
And so it's just, there's not enough there so now it's like, well, now JJ has to start again. He's got to, okay, so it's a year later. We know that episode 9 more than likely will take place a year later. So now he's got to start, okay, so it's a year later. Here's where we are. The Resistance is built up a bit. Lando's probably back in there. And then we're going to go fight. And then something, it's just, I agree with you. It's almost like you need one more movie.
Right.
In order to end this Star Wars story properly, because of what The Last Jedi did, you almost need that one more movie that almost, I hate to say this, but it's almost like it goes, episode 7, episode 9, and 10. It's almost like you need that because, I mean, in JJ I trust, and I really hope that when I watch episode 9 that I'm like, okay, he did it. He pulled it off. But JJ Abrams movies are also very fast paced.
They are. That's why we might get the greatest hits, steroids for this film.
Because I don't mean about time necessarily in terms of running time, although they are, but it's a very quick pace, not a lot of time for exposition, not a lot of time to sort of make you feel like we're entering a deeper sort of realm, and that's what the second act was supposed to do, and it tried to do it in some weird way. I don't know, because the third act is all supposed to be resolution.
Right.
And it can't be resolution, though. It can't be just resolution because of how The Last Jedi ended.
Right.
So this is why it's a really it's going to be a very interesting, different kind of third act. You know, and I want to see something that's unexpected. I want to see a risk. The risk is supposed to be in the second act. And you could say, well, he did take a risk. He took a risk for the sake of taking a risk because he felt like he had to, and he didn't want to make it predictable. So he did something that was avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde, and it didn't feel organic, which is why a lot of people it's a divisive film. It was like, why did you do that? Why did you do, like, I know you got it, but can you not just make it like there's other ways of doing this, you know? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, and what the title's going to be, we still don't have a title yet. We don't have a teaser trailer yet.
Yeah,
I think
I don't get caught up on that nonsense. I think it's great. I know like fans are like freaking out right now, demanding like we want to know the title, we want to know the teaser trailer, but they're doing that with all the movies. I saw
yeah, of course.
Spider-Man, you know, they're demanding the Spider. Like, look, man, this whole entitlement generation needs to like chillax and freaking take some more Xanax or whatever. This whole like it's coming. It's you know, like your prediction I think is pretty much spot on. I think that's when we're going to get the trailer for episode 9.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a trailer and a title for episode 9 Super Bowl. That's not a tough prediction. That's a very high probability. But some people say maybe not till April at Star Wars Celebration because they don't have to. And I know that Disney's really trying to sort of, you know, lessen the Star Wars exposure as of late because of the.
We could get a very simple teaser trailer during the Super Bowl. Something very, you know, you got John Williams music playing, very subtlety. You might have a couple quick shots of Rey, you know, or whatever. And then that's it. You know, it's very, you know, nothing where, you know, the Star Wars nerds can be sitting there dissecting it for hours. It's just going to be very simple and plain, which is fine by me. I mean, okay.
One thing I will say, I'm hoping because this is going to be
2 dudes in bullshit.
What's that?
Was that a yawn?
No, it was, I had something in my throat. I was like,
oh, I thought you were yawning. I just went Tom Hanks on you. I was like, there's no yawning on 2 dudes in bullshit.
No, there was some sort of like frog in my throat. What was I saying? This is arguably, well, we know this is going to be John Williams because he said it himself. At least, you know, and he's like, you know, he's almost 90, his last Star Wars movie. And John Williams' workload has gone down incredibly over the last number of years.
90, I mean.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping, though, as much as I don't really like the prequels, their soundtracks are amazing. The music from the Star Wars prequels are unbelievable. They are fantastic. The music from the sequel trilogy, there are certain tracks I like. I like Rey's theme. I like the Jedi Steps or whatever from The Force Awakens. There's a few tracks, but as a whole, I found the soundtracks for both The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens pretty mediocre.
Yep. Nothing
really immediately identifiable that you can go, oh, like I'm talking like Duel of the Fates shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
you know,
my favorite tracks is Duel of the Fates. I mean,
yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know, I'm talking like that level of shit, or the Imperial March or whatever. We haven't got that. Although there's a few tracks, like I said, that are not bad. So I'm hoping that because this is going to be John Williams' final Star Wars movie, that he delivers one of the greatest soundtracks we have ever heard in a Star Wars film. Sure. Pieces of music. I mean, not every piece of music is going to be like that, but there's going to be a theme, at least one or two pieces that enter the pop culture consciousness as iconic, like Duel of the Fates.
I won't even be surprised if you hear, like, because again, this is the last one.
You probably will hear it.
You hear a mixture of a lot of stuff from all the previous. You might get a hint of Duel of the Fates. You might not get a full blown thing, but a subtlety of it where people are like, hey, you know, like, I know what you're doing there. You know, you might hear a little bit of that.
Yeah, they did that in The Last Jedi and the Battle of Crate. You know, dun 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 dun, or whatever, however it goes. Whatever, you know, the music that plays at the end of A New Hope when they're fighting the TIE Fighter. I forget the fucking name of the track. But anyway, yeah, they played that. That's great. Have that shit in there. But come on, come up with something new that's like, wow, that's great. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That would be really cool because it's his last film. So, I mean, it would be really cool to hear something like that. But I will say I do like Rey's theme from The Force Awakens, and I like the Jedi steps as well. It was such a great ending to that movie. I like it. I think The Force Awakens is a solid Star Wars movie, and The Last Jedi just, oh, there's so many. It's so long and so contrived, and the Canto Bite shit so unnecessary. It's nothing but a 20-minute PSA for animal cruelty. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
you know.
Now, you do like any of the prequels? Because Revenge of the Sith is like my second favorite Star Wars film. I do like Revenge of the Sith a lot. I mean, next to Return of the Jedi, and Return of the Jedi only because that was the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters.
Yeah.
You know, and then I don't like the first two. I wasn't a fan of Phantom Menace. I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. You know, and Attack of the Clones with me, it was all right. But I really felt George found his stride in Revenge of the Sith. And I really felt like, at the end of the day, Kevin Smith said it best. You know, when you look at Luke and how Luke was in episode 4, this whiny little brat, it's like, but I want to go to Toshika power converters and blah, 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 and all that shit. He was a whiny little bitch that turned into a hero.
He was a whiny bitch. Yes, he was.
People get on like, well, Anakin was like that. Well, yeah, because Anakin's Luke's father. So yeah, it is kind of to be expected that the most badass villain probably was a whiny little bitch before coming the badass villain. So I never got into the whole, I didn't like the way they portrayed him in episode 2 and all this stuff like that. I do agree with one thing. I don't think Anakin, they shouldn't have went so young. I think Hayden Christensen should have played him for all 3 films. And we should have just seen like a teenage Anakin, a young 20-year-old, because I think by the time we get to Sith, he's about 30. I think that's supposed to be close to the age, late 20s, early 30s, give or take. Someone can correct me on that, but I think that's where he is at that point. But I like Sith a lot. In the book, Revenge of the Sith is really good. It's one of my favorite novels of the whole Star Wars. But you didn't like any of the prequels? Well,
I mean, okay, it's the writing. It's the writing. And I mean, the story is great. The story is great.
Well, and it's coarse. I get that. I mean, yeah, it's stupid writing.
Well, the dialogue is atrocious. The Phantom Menace, I haven't watched them in years, but my thoughts on the Phantom Menace were, I watched it, but I couldn't get into the characters. I couldn't get emotionally attached to the characters. The ending of the Phantom Menace, the Darth Maul lightsaber battle is great. It's a visual spectacle.
Sure.
They are the Attack of the Clones. I didn't like. I thought the scene at the end in the big arena.
Of the worst. Yeah, I agree.
Some of the worst CGI I've ever fucking seen in my life.
Of course, that was also the infancy of a lot of that too. That type of
well, it was, but even then, it looked really bad to me.
Sure.
Revenge of the Sith is often touted as the best prequel film, but I think part of that is because of what lies in there. The stakes in Revenge of the Sith are very high. This is the moment we see Darth Vader become Darth Vader. This is the moment everybody has been waiting for.
Sure.
Really, at the end of the day, you could have just made Revenge of the Sith. Nobody gives a fuck about the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and, all these. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you could have just made, you'd have to make some adjustments because obviously Revenge of the Sith is connecting to 2 previous films. So you'd have to make a standalone movie, but you could make a 2.5-hour film that is like Rogue One. It's a prequel. It's a standalone that tells the story of Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader. Yeah. And because that's what people have been waiting for. So when I saw Revenge of the Sith, I liked it better than Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace too, because it was like, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. And yes, did he get his stride at that point? Well, yeah, but it was the stakes. It was the things that were happening. It was a downfall. It was that anticipation that was coming. The dialogue was still bad. One of the worst lines in Revenge of the Sith is when Natalie Portman, poor Natalie, if you're watching, which she isn't, but if she ever does, for some strange reason, she's sick at home on a Saturday afternoon and she's surfing, YouTube, and she suddenly stumbles upon this and she decides to watch an hour and a half of this, and it gets to this point. I'm sorry. One of the worst moments is, Anakin, you're going down a path I cannot follow. You're going down a path I cannot follow. Like, George, you didn't have her say, let's abbreviate that and use the contraction instead. Like, really? I cannot follow? Can she not just say can't?
Right.
I cannot. I mean, Jesus Christ.
And I will say that is the one, that scene is very powerful, but that is a weak part to that scene. Like, I do like the exchange between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin, Obi-Wan trying to say, hey, listen, man, I got to do what I have to do, man. And Anakin's like, well, I got to, he's only thinking one. Like, I really felt like that conflict, like, the way Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen really portrayed that. And then their duel, forget about it. Their duel is probably the best lightsaber duel we'll ever see.
And this is why it's the best lightsaber duel you'll probably ever see on screen. Is because it's the most comic booky, cartoony, and I say that in the most positive way possible. It is very unrealistic what they were doing. Now, the back and forth and how they trained and the choreographing is unbelievable. It really is.
It is.
You have to give credit where credit is due. But they were able to do what they did listen, you or I would have been burned at the stake. We would have been just burned. All the fire that's around them flying, the heat alone would have melted the skin off their face. You can't get within 30 feet of an erupting or of a volcano without... Go to your fireplace or campfire. The next time you have a campfire, walk within 5 feet of it. You can feel that thing. Take a ride at a theme park where there's explosions. I remember the Jaws ride.
Yeah.
Okay. At Universal Studios in Florida. The one in Florida was light years ahead of the one in Hollywood. And if anybody is, now it's not there anymore, of course, it's long gone. But if anybody in the chat room was ever on that or had gone to the ride, there's a part in there where there's this big canister that explodes or whatever, and we're probably about 30 feet away from it. The heat was unbelievable of what you could feel. So, there they are standing on these things with this river of lava just flowing by and explosions all around them. And, and there they are going,
The only issue that I have, because some people are mentioning in the chat room, and I know Force Shield, that a Jedi can use Force Shield, and I get it. Problem is that Natalie Portman, Padme, she's not a Jedi. So how is she able?
But you can't say, unless somebody can correct me, you can't say that's what they used when nowhere in the narrative does it tell you that's what they used. You can't justify, there are so many people that say, well, yes, but a Jedi can. Okay, great. Show us them using, or have a moment where we see them go, and maybe we don't see it, but we know that's what they've done. You can't just, because now you're justifying it in your own mind, so you feel better. You're justifying this making sense in your own mind. Well, they have the ability, but they didn't do that. They didn't show us. They didn't tell us. There was no scene where that's what they were doing. So they didn't do it. Did they show? Yeah, but obviously they did, because they would. No, it's not obvious that they did. Right?
Well, that's my argument. That's been always my argument with the Force Shield argument. Is like, okay, I get Anakin and Obi-Wan, but Padme's there, and Padme's not a Jedi. So how do you explain her being able to withstand the heat while she's there?
Because that's not what Anakin and Obi-Wan did. Obi-Wan and I'm talking literally in the narrative.
Right.
Obi-Wan and Anakin may possess the power to do that, but that's not what they did. We did not see them do that. Well, it probably happened off screen. Oh, well, okay. Well, maybe it did. Well, you don't know it didn't. Well, but now you're using something that you cannot prove to justify something that is not there, just so you can feel better about watching the film. So you can say, well, that's why they did that. Yeah, but it's not. Was it written in there? It would have taken 5 seconds, 5 fucking seconds, for Obi-Wan to go, Anakin, come on. There you go. You know, it wasn't done probably because Lucas didn't think about it. Or Lucas just, if you were to ask George in an interview, he'd probably say, yeah, well, you know, Jedis are very powerful and, you know, they just, that's, you know, how it is. And they just have this thing where they can, you know, and it's like, okay, so I'm just left to assume that. Okay.
I don't think Lucas ever imagined that the shit would get taken to this level.
No, you're just imagining these two people, these two knights, so to speak, fighting with their swords, and it's an epic, and it's epic.
If you go back to you know, like how Anakin became Darth Vader, you know, he always talked about the fight between him and Obi-Wan was in a volcanic-like place. He never said it was in a volcanic planet, but it was always in a volcanic-like place. So it makes me wonder, had he stuck to maybe more the original route of how Anakin became Darth Vader, between the duel between him and Obi-Wan, maybe that might have been a better approach rather than having them on a volcanic planet where, yes, okay, if you do read the books, you do know that, yes, they are using their force shield. I understand that. But like Dave is saying here, you're not getting it explained in the narrative. And for those who don't read the books, they're kind of left going, all right, well, how the fuck is this possible?
And what came first, the book or the movie?
Well, I don't know. I guess that would be a George Lucas question, right?
Probably, but probably the movie.
Well, yeah. Right? I mean,
so what the book does is expands on things.
How much did Lucas write down back in the day? I thought he had all 9 chapters written down back in the day.
No, he did not. He did not. He had an idea of where it could go, but he did not have.
He didn't have 9 specific chapters written down.
No. That's a myth. It's an idea. It's George Lucas had an idea that this story could go on, and I have some, you know, ideas where it could probably go, but, you know, and maybe he had a couple of treatments of some ideas, but it's not like George Lucas had 3 scripts in 1980 for The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and, you know, Revenge of the Sith. It didn't happen. But all I'm saying is that again, there's an example of the book. Why did the book write, and I haven't read the book, you have, why is it in the book that they use their force shield? Because whoever wrote the book knows that I have to write this in there because I have to justify why they're not getting burned alive.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't in the movie. And I'm not saying it needs to be in the movie. Like, the whole point, like, I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying it is no doubt one of the greatest lightsaber battles we have ever seen, we may ever see. But it's great because of the choreography, and it's great because of where Lucas put them, and the over sensational of this, because he wanted to show these two knights at their prime fighting, that this is what it would have been like. It was beautifully spectacular. I have to give credit where credit is due, but it's not very realistic in the sense of that, you know, wouldn't be, but this is Star Wars, right? You know, and yeah, I mean, it was awesome. There's no doubt about it. It was visually spectacular to watch.
Well, it's funny. It's the best lightsaber duel we'll ever see on screen. No doubt about it. But I still say the best lightsaber duel moment will always be Luke and Vader silhouetted with that John Williams music playing in Return of the Jedi as they're going across. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. As they're going across the stream, and that music is starting to come up really good at to this day, I get goosebumps watching that literally moment that lasts maybe 2 seconds. I don't even think it's a full 2 seconds that they come across this. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
That's probably the best lightsaber moment ever.
Well, my favorite lightsaber moment is actually just before a lightsaber moment. There's a lot of them. That's one that you talked about. I posted this on my Many Things Dave McRae Facebook page. Shameless plug, I know. Link in the description. And I also posted it on my Twitter as well. One of my favorite moments in any Star Wars movie of all time, and it's still to this day, it gives me goosebumps. And if I'm ever watching this movie, The Empire Strikes Back, with somebody who has not seen the movie before, I, without fail, will be, when this movie comes up, I will be watching them watching this moment, because I want to see how they react to this moment. It gives me goosebumps to this day. It's the moment that Luke, I think it's one of the greatest visuals, like still shots of all time in any film, and moments that just is unbelievable. When Luke arrives at Bespin and he makes his way into the carbonite, chamber area. Forget the name of the chamber now, something chamber, whatever. And he's there, and you just hear the lights, or you see the lights turn on. You hear Darth Vader's breathing, and you hear that booming voice of James Earl Jones. And of course, there's more reverb on it right now than there normally is when he's speaking in close proximity, because he's supposed to be in this chamber where his voice would echo. So you hear this, and now it's then some. Like, his voice is epic as Darth Vader anyway, but in this particular scene, in this particular environment, it's even more. And he says, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker." And he pauses and he says, "But you were not a Jedi yet." And it's the way he says yet. It's that, "But you were not a Jedi yet." And that pause, that dramatic pause, is the unspoken, "Not so fast, kid." Do you know what I mean? And it's just, and you see him silhouetted, standing up there with the smoke all around him and his voice booming, and Luke just looking at him, and he doesn't say anything. And he walks up those steps and he stands there, and the camera cuts to the wide shot, the master shot, and they're just standing there. And then it cuts back to them. They ignite their lightsabers, and then it cuts back to the master shot, and they're there like, it still gives me goosebumps to this day. It is one of the greatest. The use of lighting and silhouette and light and shadow, it's one of the greatest cinematic images in motion picture history. And not only is it because of the aesthetic, but also because of what is about to happen, right? We know that this is his father, unbeknownst to him at this moment. So so the foreshadowing of what the image symbolizes is wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the greatest. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
When filmmaking, that's why I say, man, filmmaking is not, I don't know what they don't think about the shots today like they did back in the day. When you look at this moment here, where I'm sharing on screen, boom. When you look at this moment here, I mean,
it's great.
I can't play the sound, obviously copyright, but when you look at this, it lasts less than not even 5 seconds. It's done. I don't even think a full 5 seconds.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Done. But it's so iconic when you're sitting there and you're seeing Luke and his father silhouetted up against, like, I just wish they would get back into that type of thinking as filmmakers again, and when they're like you're describing there in Return of Empire Strikes Back. I know exactly what you're talking about. They don't think about those shots anymore, and I don't know why.
Well, you know what? And I got to say too, that to JJ's credit, although I got to say the lightsaber duel in The Force Awakens, although I don't think it will go down as one of the greatest duels of all time, certainly the aesthetic and the environment and where JJ wrote to have it take place in a forest. It's not a real, it wasn't, if you watch the special features of The Force Awakens, it wasn't a real forest, which they actually built. It was fucking amazing. But anyway, to have it take place in a forest at night and have snow there. So they're illuminated by the snow, but their lightsabers are illuminated in this forest, the red and the blue.
Cool. I will say that. I did like that.
Very cool. And you see them battling, and it's what JJ's doing is he's using what they did in Jedi, what they did in Empire, but making it his own.
Right.
He's making it his own, but he understands how our lightsabers go. Like, wow, this could be cool. We'll use some low key lighting. We'll use some nice light and shadow. Okay, well, how am I going to, how about a forest at night with snow falling? That's different. That's really cool. Okay, let's try it out. And when I watched it in the theater, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, I'm digging this.
Was it Rey or Finn who's kind of in a daze and watching the two battling each other? I thought that was a very cool look. Like they're kind of dazed and they're battling each other in the woods there in that moment. Who's dazed seeing that happen? I can't remember.
Finn.
Finn. He's
Finn.
watching them battle.
Yes.
I thought that was a very cool visual. Like you're seeing, all you could see is the lightsabers. Like that's a dope shot. Like good job.
It's a very dope shot.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And of course, the lightsaber battle, if you will, there really wasn't one in The Last Jedi, was like the environment was cool. What was going on was cool. But what totally brought that scene down, again, was at the end of the scene. That was the moment that Rey should have gone with Ren. That's the moment that Rey should have doubted. That's the moment when he said, "Come with me," so to speak. Rey should have gone. And again, for all of you who are just tuning in, I don't mean turn to the dark side, but the doubt was solidified. The doubt was solidified. Yeah. And when she says, "Oh, Ben, don't do this," it was like, what do you mean don't follow? What the hell was the point? So you go over there. It was a pointless scene. It was a pointless thing. She goes to try and save Ben. He doesn't come, and then she leaves. So the scene was only there just to kill Snoke. But anyway, let's open up the chat room. Hey, what do you think? You think we should open up the chat room?
Let's do it. We got a little time left. Let's
all right.
Questions.
Let's open up the chat room to whatever you want to talk about. If we like to keep it sort of on track with what we're talking about, but certainly we won't pigeonhole you guys to that. 111 people watching right now. Let's see if we can get some questions
always
in the chat room. Yeah, of course. I think at our peak tonight we were at 125 or something like that.
Actually, I saw 145. I've been watching
all right,
monitoring it most of the night. So
well, even better. We'll see what happens. Who's going to ask the first question? Here it is. The Film Addict says, "Do you think Christian Bale would have been a good Anakin Skywalker?" Tony, take it away.
No, actually, I've always gone on record saying I'm very happy. Wait, hold on. Are we talking Anakin prequels, or are we talking Anakin or Vader, Anakin, and original? Which
I assume he's talking about replacing Hayden Christensen.
No, I've always said Hayden was. I'm very satisfied with Hayden as Anakin Skywalker. I think he was the best choice. I know there's the whole Leonardo DiCaprio thing, and that they were originally thinking that DiCaprio. They had the idea of DiCaprio. DiCaprio didn't audition. People get that mistaken a lot. They think DiCaprio auditioned for the role. No, he never. I think it was Lucas's idea when he was thinking of people at that time who was out. And I like the fact that, again, he didn't go for the big star name. He went for the underdog. Not that, Christian Bale couldn't have done an amazing job. Christian Bale is one of the best actors of our time. The man just immerses himself into the role, no matter what the role does. I hope it doesn't affect his health one day, because this guy goes through a serious weight.
Fuck, does he ever?
Did you see the freaking new movie here? The
Vice?
Yeah, I was like, damn, dude, what do you eat hamburgers and pizza for freaking 3 months straight? I couldn't even recognize him. And then he goes to the opposite end, and when you see him in The Fighter and other movies where he's down to almost skin and bones, man, so no, as far as acting ability goes, I don't think it would have made any difference, because a lot of people get on Hayden, for the portrayal of Anakin. At the end of the day, it always comes back to the one person, and that is the director. It's the director's responsibility. It's the director's vision of the movie and what he wants to get across. And in this case, it was George Lucas. And this is George Lucas's baby. This is what George wanted. And no, I will always go on record saying I'm very happy and very pleased with the Anakin that I got in those two films. Dave?
Very cool. Christian Bale, yeah, I think he would have. I don't mind Hayden Christensen. It's just that he was given a poor script in terms of the writing. Look at Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's an Academy Award-winning actress, and look at some of the tough lines she had to get through in that movie. So it all comes down to writing. But I think considering what he was given, he was fine. It's not like I don't like the way he looks or anything like that. But Bale probably would have struggled through it as well. So yeah, I feel sort of indifferent to it, really. Are there better actors out there that could have maybe done a better job? Sure. But I don't think Hayden Christensen was the issue.
No, absolutely not. What about this question here? Hey, Dave and Tony, have you seen the Vader fan film by Star Wars Theory? If not, it's bloody brilliant. Yes, I have seen it, and yes, it is fucking bloody brilliant for a fan film. Man, Guys, they did a fucking phenomenal. And Dave, I mean, you've done Halloween fan films. The energy, the heart, the passion you put behind this shit. To see what he pulled off, hats off. It's fucking awesome.
I have seen it, and people have to keep in mind that it's a fan film, but he had like $100,000 or something like that to make this fan film. So I'm telling you right now, when you have $100,000 or $150,000 to make a fan film, you're not making a fan film, you're making a movie. I mean, you're making a major motion picture. And to put that in perspective, the fan film that I made, I've made a couple of low, but even the night he came back, which has a higher production value, only cost me about $6,000 to make when it's all said and done. And then, money plays a role. I mean, money really does, so I mean, if I put $150,000 into a fan film, I mean, you can hire the right people, you can book the right locations, you can, get tax credits, you can, whatever, you can build sets, you can get the costumes that you need to get, you can get, I mean, it's a fan film in the sense that it's made by a fan and it's not official. But when you get up there above $100,000, you're making an independent film.
Sure.
And that's what it is. So it's great. Yeah, no, it's solid. It's very well done. Very well done.
And it's a lot of work, I mean,
Huge.
As you've done a lot of you've done a handful of these Halloween fan films, no matter what the budget is, it's a shit ton of work.
If you care, no matter what the budget is, if you care about what you're doing, it's a lot of work.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to.
And that's always been my issue with, YouTube. My only one issue, and it's why I stopped making videos. It's like what they don't see, what the people, the comments, the comment section don't see. It takes you all of millitenth of a second to write up your comment, be a dick, be a douchebag and whatnot. You don't know the hours, the time it takes for someone like Dave to plan out these shots for his Halloween film and, prepping it and things like that. Like, that's hours of dedication and work. And all it takes is some idiot out there to leave a stupid comment. It takes less than a minute to do that. And that's the one side of YouTube that I've never liked, even though it's a great spot for creators to do shit. And I understand that, if you're going to throw yourself out in the film industry and things like that, you've got to take criticism. Yeah,
absolutely.
I believe that on the scale of a movie. But when we're talking fan films and stuff like that, and the things that you see on YouTube that are done by fans, I don't know. I've just never been a fan of seeing people leave stupid comments like on yours. I've seen it on your Halloween, videos. It's just like, yeah, okay, like what are you doing? Like you're so good, you're critiquing what Dave's done in his video, but like what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, there's context that you have to keep in mind, but people have to understand that there's a difference between a critique and an opinion.
Sure.
And there's a difference between an opinion and an informed opinion. Just because you have an opinion, everybody has an opinion, right? You know what the saying is, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. Yes, everybody has an opinion, but just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you're right. And it doesn't mean that your opinion is informed. Okay. So when people sort of talk poorly about a video of mine or say they don't like this idea, yeah, I take it with, whatever. I mean, it doesn't really, I respect those who say, hey, listen, I really like what you did here, but maybe you should have done this. Have you thought about doing this? Or, I like that scene where you did this, but have you thought about maybe instead of having her walk over there, maybe it would have been cool if you had her walk over there. And then I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You're right, dude. That's great. That's constructive criticism because you're recognizing, because that's an opinion that's a constructive feedback. Right. And that stuff's great.
This sucks. Your actress sucks. It's like, it's a fan film. They're not hiring fucking Jamie Lee Curtis to play a role here, like what the fuck?
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that because of the fan film Never Hike Alone, which costs, I think about 40 or 50 grand to make, you have to keep that in perspective as well. Right. That sets the bar. Like these independent production companies are doing fan films themselves of high, you know, of well-known properties, and they're getting money, and because of, you know, crowdfunding and Kickstarter and Indiegogo and, you know, all these things, they're able to get a lot of money to actually make films, that fan films, but they look like real movies for all intents and purposes.
Sure.
So, but yeah, the trolling never really bothers me. I mean, in terms of that, and trolling in and of itself never bothers me. I actually hardly, I get so many comments on my videos that most of the time I'm not seeing them, because there's just so many that I just can't keep up. You know, and it's nothing personal. It's just, you know, there's so many.
Get to a point, whether it's you doing a Halloween fan film or like this guy did with the Vader fan film, that people would just appreciate it that you or this guy here with Vader are taking the time out of your schedule to do something for YouTube and for the fans, to do something nice for you. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to take the time out of your, you know, weeks to make a Halloween fan film. And he didn't have to do this with the Vader fan film. That's all I'm saying, that I wish people would take that into consideration rather than being like a dick on YouTube and leaving a dick comment. That's
well, like the saying goes. I mean, folks who are watching in the chat room right now, if you want to know how many stupid people are out there in the world, just start a YouTube channel. And present company most excluded, of course. I just mean in a general sense. Don't think I'm calling anybody out here. But no, you're right. I mean, you know, I went to Pasadena and I shot all there for the fan film because I thought it was a cool thing to do for the fans. You know, and I think most of the people that watched my fan film got it. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, this is cool. This is a lot of fun. Anyway, let's move on. Take some
good one here that I think we should answer, because I don't know if it will. The Smokies asked, do you think episode 9 will make $1 billion? And I personally don't think it will. I think this film might fall short. Because where Star Wars in the state it is in right now, I don't know. I'm not confident that it will make $1 billion. I mean, it's going to make decent, but do you think it's going to hit $1 billion?
Yes.
Okay.
I because in order for we'll definitely know more when the marketing begins to come out, and the teaser trailer comes out, and the title comes out, and then the official trailer comes out. Once we start to hit spring and summer, and the marketing for this movie and new information begins to come out, and interviews begin to drop, and we get a real sense of what we can expect from JJ Abrams' final Star Wars film, then we'll be able to gauge it a bit more. But I think it's going to
$1 billion now. That's the question. Do you think it's going to be higher, more towards the $2 billion like The Force Awakens did, or you think it's going to probably just nudge over the $1 billion mark and kind of rest somewhere between the 1.3 and whatever, which isn't bad. I mean,
no. Well, The Force Awakens did cross 2 billion worldwide. Right. The Force Awakens almost made $1 billion domestically.
Right.
And when folks, for those who don't know, when you say domestic, that's Canada and the US.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of fucking money. And because JJ Abrams is doing it, like I said, I mean, this could be because how movies make $1 billion, how movies make $1 billion, how movies make $2 billion, and how movies make nearly $1 billion domestic is repeat watching. Right. Okay. Yeah. It's not opening weekend. It's repeat value. So JJ Abrams made a decent Star Wars movie. A Star Wars movie is if he could make even just half of that, right? It's not the first Star Wars movie we've had in 10 years. So we don't have that riding on it now. It's probably not going to make as much as The Force Awakens, but I think if it's good and if it's better than The Last Jedi, word of mouth will travel. And I think it will make over $1 billion. I think it'll beat The Last Jedi.
Now, to piggyback off of that, I will say this. Disney is going to have a ridiculous year at the box office. They may set a record that will probably never be broken between Avengers, The Lion King, Aladdin, Dumbo, Star Wars. What else is coming out for them this year?
Like Captain Marvel.
I mean, Disney is about to set a box office year record that will probably never be touched.
Yeah. It's huge. Is Frozen Disney?
Yeah, that's right. Frozen is Disney, and Frozen. I didn't even think about that. Frozen 2. Jesus,
Fuck.
it's gonna make close to probably like 7 billion or more this year. More. They might even hit 10 billion at the box office. When you think about it, Avengers, that's already making 2 billion. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the last one. This is it.
Yep.
This is like, forget about it. Lion
Yep.
King, I think we all know that's gonna make a buttload. This Star
Yep.
Wars film, like you said, the key thing is if the repeat viewing is there. Yeah, but Jesus, man, the numbers at the end of this, I think that Universal's, the rest of them, forget it. You're never gonna catch them.
I agree. It's crazy shit. It's because Disney owns pretty much all of the big bona fide properties.
Right.
That make that kind of
shit.
Toy Story 4. That's right. Yeah.
Jesus,
that's insane.
It's gonna crush it this year at the box office.
It's insane. All right, let's take 2 more.
2 more. Sounds good. All right.
Let's see here. 2 more questions, ladies and germs, for this Sunday, January 13th, 2019. Okay. Mike Cornelia says, are you optimistic about episode 9, even though you didn't like TLJ? Mike, I answered that earlier in the stream. You'll have to go back and watch it. So still 2 more.
2 more.
2 more. I think there's like a 5 or 7 second delay between when we talk and when people actually
dead right now on my end. It could be the delay.
2 more. 2 more. Noah Haney says, or Haney, will the next trilogy be a prequel? You're talking about Star Wars. Will the next Star Wars trilogy that they do, if they do one, be a prequel to the episodic films that we know? I hope not. I want Star Wars,
because I know Obi-Wan has been in the talks. Is that been greenlit or
no? It hasn't been greenlit.
Okay.
I would love Star Wars to get away from the episodic films that we know.
Okay.
I would love Star Wars to go somewhere else in the universe, not the galaxy, but the universe, and tell a story that is fresh, new, with new characters, new villains. We have even something. Imagine something that's not anything you've heard from Legends, not anything. Something that's like something else we can like. Wow, fuck. Maybe there's a baddie out there on some other planet on the other side of the universe that's even more insane than Vader or the Emperor or Plagueis or Thrawn or whatever. Like, I mean, there's just something, like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I just don't want them to go back. I just don't want them to go back and try to keep tying everything in. It's just like, let it go.
Yep.
Let it go. That's how I feel about it anyway. I mean, I don't know, but.
Well, Morgulus Tower, I'm going to redirect your question. You asked most anticipated movie of 2019. If you go back to last week's episode, me and Dave talked about that in the whole stream, our most anticipated films.
That's very true. Very true. Symbolic Raid says, have you seen the film Bumballs? I don't even know if that's a real. I think they will just.
Thoughts on Birdman from the film?
Birdman, Michael Keaton. Has anybody seen Bumballs? Sorry, dude, that's just fucking funny. Birdman. Yeah. Thoughts on Birdman? I really liked Birdman.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
And I loved how obviously
for Michael Keaton, good comeback film.
Yeah, it was great. And what I liked about Birdman as well was obviously it wasn't really shot in one take,
right?
But the way they made it look like it was shot in one take
totally
was brilliant. Yeah. Genius.
Yes.
Genius. That alone. Did I forget the DP's name now? Did he win
I think
best cinematography? I think he did. Yeah, he was great.
He was.
He was great.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the DP's name now. I used to know that off.
Yeah, I forget his name now too. Is he the same DP that went on and did The Revenant?
Yeah.
I think it's him.
Emmanuel Loop. Well, it's saying Emmanuel Lupus. Loop, whatever the hell. I can't.
Did he do The Revenant? I think
Well, no,
I
that
thought
was what's his name. That was oh my god.
excuse me.
Never mind. I'm thinking of the director of Revenant. Well, let me click on his IMDb here.
I thought he did The Revenant as well.
He did.
That's what I thought. Yeah, he's a great DP.
Yeah, he
He's
did.
great.
Yeah, in fact, me and Dave were talking about The Revenant. The Revenant's probably one of my favorite shot films because they used all natural light. You know, even though some people feel that for DiCaprio's films, it wasn't his best as far as winning the Academy Award goes.
Right.
Story of Hugh Glass. It's a very drawn out story. I actually like that shit. I like old.
I love the movie.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I do too. I didn't think it was drawn out at all. I know some people argue and say like, well, when you look at DiCaprio's archive of films, he could have won for Gilbert Grape. Yeah, well, he could have won for Gilbert Grape. Unfortunately, he lost to Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
That's who he lost to that year, which, actually now in hindsight, when you actually look at both films, and Tommy Lee Jones got the best award for not lead actor, but the whatever, the I almost said
best supporting actor.
Supporting actor, yeah. So now in hindsight, when you actually look at performances, not that I don't enjoy Tommy Lee's performance in The Fugitive, I do. It's a great performance. When you look at what DiCaprio did in Gilbert Grape, you kind of shake your head at the Academy and go, "Really? Like, yeah, I don't see what you're seeing that Tommy Lee Jones gets the award over DiCaprio that year."
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that fact until about 2 months ago. Someone had told that Tommy Lee Jones beat him out that year in '93 for the award.
Interesting.
Got one more good question.
Yeah, let's do one more. What the hell? Let's do one more. Ow! All right. Let me see. Let me see here.
I want some of it.
Sorry?
Whatever you're smoking, I want some of it.
It's just I'm high on life, folks. I'm high on life. That's the way it is. Let's see here. Movie Juice says there's
Juice. I like the name.
Like the name. There's a Child's Play fan film dropping soon called Charles. You guys gonna check it out? I haven't heard of it.
Never
even heard of it. Let's do one more.
Yeah,
and maybe
just to be, I don't really I love horror, but I don't really follow the whole Charles Play Chucky. Like I like the first film, but anything after, I've seen them, but like I'm not like that almost would be like a Cody question. This is where you need Cody to come in and like answer that shit.
Understand. I just want to answer this one only, but not as the last one. Michael Martinez says, "Hey, Dave, is Dean Cundy still working?" I can actually answer that because when I talked to Dean Cundy a couple of months back at the convention, he said he is, but his workload is very more manageable.
He's got to be in his what, 70s?
He's 70, 74, 5, something like that.
I mean, man, when you get to that age, doing DP for movies, it's a lot of fucking
tough.
work.
It's tough. He's got nothing to prove.
No,
so,
he's already been stuck.
Yeah.
My God, his list of movies is beyond. You can't forget about it.
And if you guys want to check out my chat with Dean Cundy, it is on my channel. Just scroll or put Dave McRae, Dean Cundy, and it should pop up.
I like the favorite filming location for horror. That's a great question because there's so many places you could go with that.
Well, it's a good question, but it really is one that's all indicative on what is the story. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I mean, it's what is great favorite filming location, or you're asking what is our favorite filming location for horror in a horror movie? Perhaps that's what you're asking.
Either way, go with that.
Yeah, either way it could be
Now, if we're actually talking about physical locations, I've only been to most of the Friday the 13th filming locations. I've been to the one in Connecticut where they filmed part 2, and I live literally 30 minutes from where they filmed Friday the 13th part 6, and I go up to that a lot.
Right.
So like, I don't know if I want to count it as a filming location because I've never been to like Pasadena. If I've been there, obviously Halloween would be the first one I would say. I haven't been to Utah, which is where they filmed Halloween 4. Salt Lake City, in the suburbs of Salt Lake City. So it's on my to-do list to go see. But if we're talking about actual locations that we've been at, I've only been to a couple. But as far as like the tonality of setting the scene, favorite filming locations, I mean, geez, I've always felt like there's something about the small town vibe and the innocence of a small town. I just watched the film 1984. I finally just watched that.
It's a Canadian movie.
Such a good, like, it kind of was just like one of those, like, when you were talking about it, you were talking about this on I think it was on the last stream. I think you were talking about.
Yeah, I think
I
I
wrote that down to watch, and I watched it over the week. And I was like, this is a really good film. It's that small town kind of sets the creepy vibe of like shit's about to fucking go down, and it's not good. Same thing with, like, for example, like how they shot Paranormal Activity. It's not set in like a house that you kind of, looks like a haunted house. It's the total opposite of that. It really becomes that realistic look. It's kind of the same way The Exorcist did. I take nothing away from Shining. You all know I love Kubrick. Kubrick's the man. I bow at the mantle of Stanley Kubrick. But The Shining, for me, when I look at that, it's kind of like, okay, creepy hotel. Yeah, I would even be creeped out in a hotel by myself, secluded in the mountains in the wintertime and whatnot. Like there's already a creepiness to that right there. I've always felt it's just that small town innocence, or in the place that doesn't look like it should have anything go wrong, all of a sudden just fucking gets flipped upside down. That's the kind of the shit I like.
Yeah, I agree with you on the small town thing. It's hard for me to answer because it all comes down to what is the story. And then if I know the story, I can start to kind of figure out, it depends. I mean, in terms of locations and like, small town, the state, I mean, in Canada here, great locations for that small town kind of thing is, anybody, most of the country of Canada is very much like the Midwest of the United States. So,
and I'm very much looking forward to my visit up there to photographing it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And so, I mean, when you get out to BC, obviously you get into the mountains,
sure,
but, and a bit of Alberta as well, but especially when you're in Ontario and Quebec and stuff.
There's something about like isolation in the mountains that like, it's already got a creep factor to it. So I'm not creeped out. That's why I said, like, I don't want people to think I don't like, I've always said The Shining is in the top 3 of like what I feel you do need to follow in making a good film.
Right.
But there's, like you said, like that small town, like Ontario or Toronto, in the suburbs and something like that. There's something about that that's more creepy because it's kind of like breaking the order. It's like, this shouldn't be happening here, but it's happening here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that was the whole premise of Halloween, right? It's that small town, nothing ever happens here. Yeah, it's always great, and it's great when you choose locations that are like the state of Maine. That's why King, I mean, he's from there, I believe, as well. But that's why he puts all this stuff, because Maine is really, it's that small town kind of thing. The Goonies, that on the opposite coast, of course, has that, in Astoria and stuff, and those are great locations. Small town, coastal towns, Midwest small towns, are always great for any kind of horror movie.
Right.
So I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for Tony and I on this episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. We want to thank you guys for joining us here on this January 13th.
Appreciate it very much. So
yeah, for sure. Tony's link to his Instagram is in the description, as well as links to all of my pages as well. Tony and I will be back.
I want to quickly say something on that. I know my Instagram has been idle for the last month. That's because I've been starting my project this year is to shoot everything on film, 35 millimeter film, whether it's expired 35 millimeter film or 120 millimeter film, or the rare and hard to find, which I've managed to find, 126. Everything I'm devoting to this year is film. So it's a process. I got to go through the roll. I got to develop the roll. I got to see how the film is reacting to all these cameras that's basically been sitting idle for like a decade. But I know some people have asked me, like, dude, are you ever going to post again on there? Starting this week, everything is about ready to come out, and everything I do on Instagram and you guys see on Instagram will all be film. It will not be digital. So hopefully you guys will support and follow this little journey I take over the next 12 months and taking it old school.
Awesome. So if you guys have Instagram and you're not following Tony on Instagram, follow him now on Instagram. Do it now.
Come on. Get to the Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on. I'll leave the voice shit for you. I can't do that shit.
Oh, that's a bad Arnold. Everybody goes, la, la, la. That's all you do. Yeah, so Tony and I will be back next week. We won't be around Super Bowl Sunday, though, just a heads up, because of the Super Bowl. But we'll be back next week for a show. We don't know what
I'm
we're going to do
actually
yet.
going to the Super Bowl, even if the Patriots don't make it. 'Cause the Super Bowl is here in Atlanta this year, and I'm gonna go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, I guess in the meantime, in between time, we will talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, talking Star Wars. It was fun. Next week we'll be talking about something else. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that film that guy. What was it? Bumballs.
Bumballs. I gotta look that up. Bumballs. Bumballs.
Bumballs. All right. Cheers.
And Bumblebee.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe it was a typo. Who knows? All right. See you guys.